Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Please bear with me today, I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, so I might not be as fluent as usual. Anyway, today we're diving into a topic that I think most photographers, newbies and seasoned pros alike can relate to. Imposter syndrome. It's that constant self-doubt, that feeling that no matter how much you learn or how many shots you take, it's never quite good enough. And let's be honest, that can be a real creativity killer. So what exactly is imposter syndrome? In a nutshell, it's the feeling that you don't belong in the creative space and that somehow your work isn't as good as others and that everyone else around you has it all figured out. You might look at the work of your favorite photographers and think, they're real artists, I'm just an amateur. Sound familiar? For example, I remember a few years back, I was really struggling to find my photography voice. The problem mainly lay within the editing style of my photos. The irony was that everyone else seemed to love my style, but I really disliked it and had become really bored of it. Allow me to set the scene. So I'd just been published by Trope Publishing in a collaborative book of London, along with a whole load of super talented photographers. To celebrate the launch of the book, there was an exhibition held in London, with a few photos from all the photographers featured in the book. And I remember arriving at the exhibition, and despite people saying they loved my work, I felt as though my work, when held up side by side with the other photographers, looked the worst. And as a result, I immediately put my solo book on hold, as I just felt like my work was not good enough. And that's a prime example of imposter syndrome in action. Fast forward a few years and I couldn't be happier or prouder to have released my first street photography solo book, London After Dark. And perhaps this is a story for a separate video about my personal journey in making the book and how I overcame that crazy creative setback. Leave a comment below if you feel that that would be of any value for you guys to hear that story. The thing is, imposter syndrome isn't limited to beginners. Even some of the biggest names in photography, like myself, just kidding, people whose work you've probably admired, struggle with it. It's that little voice in the back of your head saying, your last shot was probably just pure luck, or the majority of your recent photos have all been trash. So why do we, as photographers, feel imposter syndrome so strongly? First, street photography especially requires you to be both an artist and a technical expert. You have to master timing, composition, and sometimes challenging lighting conditions, all on the fly. Because of this, it's easy to focus on what we don't know rather than how much we've actually learned. Plus, social media has intensified this pressure. We're constantly comparing our raw moments with other photographers' best work, edited, curated, and polished. Let's talk about some of the common triggers of imposter syndrome in photography. Here are a few scenarios that you might recognize. Comparing yourself to others. You scroll through social media and see flawless shots from others, making your work feel small by comparison. But remember, we're all just seeing each other's highlights. Number 2, perfectionism. If you're always trying to capture the perfect shot, it can feel impossible to measure up. Photography is an art, not a science. There is no one perfect way to capture a scene. Number 3, new skills and gear overload. Maybe you're learning new techniques or using a different camera, and it feels overwhelming. Remember, even experienced photographers are always learning and refining their craft. Imposter syndrome doesn't just feel bad, it can actually hold you back in real ways. When you constantly doubt yourself, you're less likely to try new things, put yourself out there, or even share your work. Ever hesitated to post your work because you're worried it wasn't good enough? Or deleted a photo you loved because you thought others don't like it? That's imposter syndrome keeping you from growing. It's like having the fun police in your brain and stopping you from expressing yourself. Let's get to the good stuff. Here are a few practical tips to help you overcome that imposter syndrome and start feeling more confident in your work. Number 1, stop comparing and start learning. Instead of comparing yourself to others, try learning from them. When you see a photo you admire, don't think, I'll never be that good. Instead, think, what can I learn from this? Maybe it's the lighting, the composition, or the way they've captured a candid moment. Use other photographers as inspiration, not competition. Number 2, celebrate your progress. One of the best ways to fight imposter syndrome is to track your growth. Go back through old photos and see how far you've come. Photography is a journey, and every shot, good or bad, is part of your story. In a previous video, I spoke about how I like to look through my archives with fresh eyes and begin noticing certain details in compositions I've previously missed. I also use it as an opportunity to see how much I've improved. Number 3, remember, no one has it all figured out. Everyone in the creative field feels insecure at times. The photographers you look up to, they have their doubts too. Photography is an ongoing process, and every artist is a work in progress. Number 4, get feedback from a supportive community. Find a group of photographers, either online or locally, who you can trust to give constructive feedback. Often the feedback from others can help you see the value in your work. If you don't have a community, consider joining photography forums, social media groups, or even attending one of my London workshops. Number 5, keep taking risks. The best way to grow as a photographer is to push yourself. Experiment with different styles, subjects, and techniques. Even if you don't feel ready, put your work out there. The only way to truly fight imposter syndrome is by proving to yourself that you can keep creating and improving. I've recently challenged myself to revive this channel after years of feeling like it's all been said and done, thinking what could I possibly have to offer. But now that ridiculous sentiment isn't holding me back. I truly believe I have value to add to this platform and to you guys listening. So I'm out here sharing my thoughts with the hope of inspiring and supporting the creative community at large. At the end of the day, photography is all about passion and self-expression. Imposter syndrome might try to shake your confidence, but it can't take away the joy of capturing a moment. Remember, you picked up a camera for a reason, because you have a vision. So keep shooting, keep experimenting, and know that every click is a step closer to the photographer you're meant to become. Thanks for tuning in today, and if you've ever struggled with imposter syndrome, let me know in the comments. Share your experience, I'm sure we can all relate. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and keep creating. See you in the next one. Mr. Whisper over and out. Peace.